Human industry is accelerating. Our global data networks and supply chains are extracting resources faster than the biosphere can replenish them. We have the cognitive capacity to map the human genome and engineer global communications. Yet we are altering the environmental conditions that allow our civilization to exist. This suggests a structural error in how we define and measure intelligence. We are operating on a mechanical algorithm for thinking. To understand why it's failing, we have to look at the moment it was standardized. In 1949, at Manchester University, a group of scientists met to determine if machines could eventually simulate human thought. Alan Turing emerged from that workshop and established the imitation game. This started a trend in science where the human brain and the computer were treated as mirrors of one another. This defined intelligence as a one-way mechanism. It starts by identifying a problem, applies a specific algorithm, and produces a solution. This architecture forms the foundation for modern artificial intelligence and the way we test human IQ. Linear logic works consistently in small, isolated systems. However, it lacks a mechanism to register how its own outputs alter the external environment. When this logic is applied at a global scale, it ignores environmental feedback. It treats the world as an infinite resource for finite problems. Living systems operate on a different architecture. Biologists call this autopoiesis. It is the process by which a cell continuously creates and maintains its own structure through its interaction with its surroundings. A living organism builds itself through the consequences of its own actions. In the living world, intelligence is the act of anticipating and navigating the environment to maintain life. This requires relational causation. The entity's actions react back upon itself, forcing it to adjust to ensure its own stability. In nature, these circular loops scale up to entire ecosystems. Ecologist Monica Gagliano monitored the electrical signals of ancient spruce trees in the Dolomites. Her data showed that the oldest trees synchronized their water preservation behavior 14 hours before a solar eclipse began. The forest was reading environmental signals and anticipating a future event across a distributed network. At the macro level, Gaia theory suggests the entire planetary biosphere operates as a self-regulating network. During the Great Oxygenation Event, 0.4 billion years ago, early life flooded the atmosphere with oxygen, nearly poisoning the environment. The biosphere matured its feedback loop by inventing oxygen-based metabolism and the ozone layer, which stabilized the climate. Intelligence describes this mature, self-regulating network that maintains the conditions for life. The still face experiment in psychology illustrates what happens when these feedback loops fail. When a mother suddenly stops reacting to her infant's cues, the infant becomes distressed and eventually collapses. The biological expectation of a reciprocal signal has been broken. Our technosphere currently acts as a linear override. It produces outputs while remaining blind to the environmental signals that the biosphere uses to regulate itself. By ignoring these reciprocal loops, we have created a crisis of relational intelligence. Many indigenous frameworks define the mind as something existing outside the individual. In this view, intelligence is measured by how effectively an organism nourishes its relationships with its ecosystem. Intelligence functions as a web of feedback loops. It is a state of participation rather than a tool for extraction. Humanity is already embedded within a 4 billion-year-old superintelligence. We just have to start listening to the feedback.